Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk about one of the most difficult skills that I was able to acquire. Since I had been a soccer player and I seen Miroslav Klose and Aubameyang doing this as celebration, I thought I could do it too. I didn't know how long it was going to take me to learn, that it was very challenging, and I was likely to get some small injuries doing this. Even Klose and Aubameyang failed a few times. I wish there was more information out there on how to go about achieving these skills, especially for people who want to learn this at an older age, without having any background in gymnastics, parkour, and acrobatics. If you don't get enough height, you can easily get hurt. Whenever I moved to a harder surface, my fear and adrenaline increased significantly. I started learning the technique in a gymnastics gym. Because I was very frightened of jumping, my instructor started me with a spring box. It took me a few weeks to land one. I was not generating any rotation for my arms, so I had to compensate with my running speed. The next progression was from a spring floor to a foam pit. It took me about 3 weeks to land one at an even height. By that I mean the height of the spring floor was even with the height of the foam pit. After I was able to land consecutive attempts, I moved to the spring floor and added a 6-inch thick mat to soften the landing. The impact was noticeably harder and it took me 2 months to land one. The mat was always sliding forward, so I had to land perpendicular. I spent about 3 months doing this. Because I was 2 weeks away from turning 30, I decided to try the front flip on just the spring floor. I now regret that. The first attempts were rough. The flow of adrenaline numbed the neck pain that I would feel the next day. On the second day, in less than 10 attempts, I landed it. After that, I decided to try and land one in the foam pit without using the spring floor. I would have to generate the height all by myself. This took me about 20 attempts. Compared to the spring floor, it felt like I had to be super fast and the landing was more forceful. I then decided to take a break from doing front flips for about 6 months in order to travel and to run a half marathon. I also moved to a different location. When I got back to doing front flips, it took me only 2 weeks to land one on the spring floor again. This time it felt much easier and I did not have the same neck pain I had before. After this, I said that I wanted to land one on the grass. I started working on it in June of that year. The best place for a soft landing was the sand pit, so I bought a shovel and dug up the sand. The setup was much different from a gymnastics gym. I was the only one attempting flips, which made me a bit nervous. The warm-up was also different. I did a bit of running, jumping, and forward roll. The first 3 days I could not land a single one. They were definitely harder than on the spring floor. On the 4th day, on my 26th attempt, I was able to land my first ever front flip outside of a gymnastics gym. Very happy, of course. The technique was not the best because I was not grabbing my legs. This meant that my legs rotated faster than my upper body. I then decided to try it on the grass with a thin mat. That was not a good idea. On my second day, I pulled my hamstring. It took me 2 weeks to recover and return to the sand pit. This time, it only took me 3 days instead of 4 to land one again. What was different from the first one was that now I was able to grab my legs. Another change that I made before going back to the sand pit was warming up on a trampoline. For some reason, up to this point, I decided to ditch the trampoline because it felt different, but that proved to be wrong. The trampoline was key to learning the right technique. During my 4th day on the sand pit, on just my 4th attempt, I landed 2 front flips in a row. I then thought it was time to move to wood chips, a surface that is softer than grass. This was a good move because this type of surface is more readily available. Where I live, almost every playground has them. Also, cleaning the sand out of my shoes and clothes before getting into my car was tedious. The very first attempt felt very forceful and gave me some whiplash. It wasn't serious enough to stop me from attempting it again that day, but I felt it. Of course, my neck was sore for the next few days. Forgot to mention, I was working on the front flip 3 times a week, 2 days on the trampoline and only once a week on the sand pit. It took me another 3 days to land my very first front flip on the wood chips. A day before this, I made a change that helped me a great deal, which was to wear soccer cleats. After this, everything seemed a bit more controlled, though the first attempts were still forceful. On the 7th day, I started taking off from the grass and landed on the wood chips. Almost every day that I was attempting the front flip, I landed 1 or 2. Because the landing was very forceful in the beginning of the session, I postponed attempting it on the grass till late fall, even though wood chips are not too different from grass. I started in June and I was now in November. I just couldn't get myself to try it on the grass. Even though I was doing flips on the wood chips, I still pulled my hamstring 3 times. Each of these injuries prevented me from attempting it for about 2 or 3 weeks. The way I fixed this was with resistance bands. After using them, I didn't pull these muscles again. On the 10th day, after 15 attempts on wood chips, I thought it was time to try it for the very first time on grass. It rained the day before and the ground was soft. On the very first few attempts, I was opening too early and I was absorbing most of the impact in my calves and ankles. After that day, I wanted to warm up on the wood chips, and after I got good height, attempted on the grass. On the 13th day, it started raining again. That day, I got good height and I was very close. The next day, I decided to attempt it behind my parents' house. This had to be the day. I needed to land one because winter was approaching. The snow and wet grass would make it almost impossible. I started with my usual warm-up, which consisted of jumping over hurdles and doing forward rolls. I got over the fear by doing some one-arm forward rolls. From that point on, I increased my height and made sure not to put my hands down before the takeoff. After about 30 minutes, I was able to get over the fear completely. With each attempt, I kept increasing my height and running speed. On the 27th attempt, I landed my first ever front flip on grass, finishing a 2-year journey. Very happy, of course. It's one of the hardest fitness skills that I've ever done. I want to be able to use the front flip as a celebration after scoring a goal like Klose and Aubameyang. I want to get to a point where I don't have to overthink it and I can go for it whenever I want, just like I do it on the trampoline. I promise if I get 1,000 subscribers, I'll make a video on how I got myself to celebrate with a front flip. You will get to see me score a goal in my adult soccer league and celebrate with a front flip. So please don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.